Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So the second video of the gearing series is all about savage raid gearing. Raid gearing is one of the two most fundamental pillars of the gearing process ever since A Realm Reborn, alongside the tombstone system. So when people talk about best in slot gear in guide videos or on Reddit, or something such as if you use my gear calculators on my website, you are going to encounter that nearly 100% of the time you will be recommended either tombstone or raid gear for each and every single slot, and the next two videos of this series are really dedicated to gearing you up, haha, with the knowledge, yeah. Is that funny? No, that's probably terrible. But gearing you up with the knowledge to go out and do this yourself. If this video helped you and you want to help support me and my content, I would incredibly appreciate if you threw a cat daddy at that like button, we're changing it up, and cat daddy that subscribe button. So now people are going to immediately wonder, do you absolutely, completely, and utterly need all of these pieces of gear? This is really intimidating. Oh my gosh, how do I do this? And the answer is absolutely heck no, you do not. Especially if you are watching this in patch 5.5, you can very easily and very affordably now get crafted sets which get you up to 520, which honestly, that's why I made that the first video of this series, and there are likewise going to be a bunch more videos after this to showcase various other options available to you. I wanted to really say this as a disclaimer because I feel that it's just very important to make that clear, because I've seen many comments of people become discouraged, whether it's in Savage Guide videos, whether it's on my own channel, just on Reddit. I just wanted to say that because this is only one avenue to gear out, and I'm going to continue this guide series to give you all of the tools so that you can see the plethora of options available. So if Savage raiding isn't for you, totally don't sweat it. Lots of options coming your way. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get into explaining. So Savage raiding in this game has always awarded best in slot item level gear. This patch means 530 item level, or item level 535 weapon. Weapon is a special case. As a cautionary note, item level doesn't mean that that piece has best in slot stats, even if it is 530, which is the best item level you can get for armor pieces right now. Secondary stats, which I will plug a video here, where I actually go into secondary stats because I already talked about them and I don't want to derail this video because that's how I get videos to like 30 minutes in length. But last tier, I want to say that I do distinctly remember had a best in slot item list for Astrologian that involved the item level 530 tombstone weapon over the 535 raid weapon. So Savage gear actually has only one source, Savage raiding, which I mean might sound obvious in hindsight, but I know talking to a lot of new players that actually isn't really apparent. It's just like, oh, Savage gear, that's going to just be the best gear. And so this is just a particular subset of the best gear that you can get, and particularly from Savage raiding. In patch 5.5, this includes Eden 9 through Eden 12 Savage fights. These fights have a chest that contains multiple different coffers that can be opened for a very specific piece of gear, and that piece of coffer, that loot coffer that you get, can be opened on whatever job you desire, making them highly flexible. So if you say raid on a ranged DPS like me, and let's say that you want to use it on a melee DPS samurai, then you simply open the coffer you looted, and you looted it as a ranged DPS, not your samurai, but you are on your samurai job in-game, and make sure you are on your samurai, and then you open up the coffer, and then bam, you get that piece of loot for the samurai, letting you funnel that piece of gear into whatever job you want to do it. The only limitation is a headpiece coffer will be a headpiece only. Earring coffer, earring only. Body coffer, body piece only, and so on. You can't turn a body piece into an earring or vice versa. Heaven knows I would totally do that with how many times we cleared Eden 9 Savage, but alas, that is not an option. And I may as well put this disclaimer here, is that as a heads up, what sorts of coffers you get dropped is very RNG, random number generator dependent. Like last night, my group got 3 headpieces across E10S and E11S, which was, really, really weird. But sometimes when life gives you head gear, you just gotta go with it. So lastly, each fight cleared also awards you with a book, which is like this book of anamorphosis that you're going to see on screen right now. This is basically a bad luck prevention token, and you can exchange this bad luck prevention token, this book, in order to get specific pieces of gear from the NPC Y'all, oh, y'all, in Yulmore. And like, I can trade in 6 books of litany from 6 random clears of E10S for these sleeves of healing. And honestly, it really just does boil down to bad luck prevention system in the game. Now, the last items that I'm going to be talking about for rewards from Savage Raiding include Crypt Twine, Crypt Ester, Crypt Lubricant, and the Defragmented Tomestone item from this tier. It changes every so often. And the Tomestone is not to be confused with the Tomestone currency. Very different thing. This is an item actually in your inventory. And these are all related to Tomestone gear, and I will leave a discussion of their use for next video on specifically Tomestone gear. Now let's pin down which coffers and which drops you can get from which particular raid fight for a tier. So going through the loot table, the first boss of a raid tier, which is in this current expansion E1S, E5S, or E9S, is going to be 3 coffers that can be used for earrings, belt, necklaces, bracelets, and 1 ring. You can really think about that as where you're going to be getting the accessory coffers from. The second floor, which is going to be E2S, E6S, and then E10S, is going to drop 2 coffers from a selection of head, feet, or hands, armor pieces, those 3, as well as 1 crypt dust coating, and then 1 tomestone. Then the third floor is going to drop 1 legs coffer and 1 of either head, feet, or hands coffers. And if you're really lucky like my group, as I said, you will get 3 heads in 1 night. True story, sadly. And now the 4th floor is where you can finally get 1 body coffer and 1 weapon coffer guaranteed to loot. And then what you will also get additionally is a random weapon. This is not a coffer, I will tell you, this is not a coffer. This is a deterministic weapon, like a ninja weapon. Or like a dragoon weapon or something. It will be not a coffer, it will be a weapon. And 1 mount special to that raid tier. So you can potentially, with very good RNG on that weapon drop, get 2 item level 535 weapons for your raid members per clear. 1 from the deterministic weapon that you get, and 1 from the coffer that you get to choose. So that being said, if you plan to get fully geared in raid gear, you will need to go all the way through the entire Savage tier based on these limitations, hence why you often see people take in alternate, quote-unquote, best I can put right now in slot gear options until their group has the entire tier on farm to gear out everyone in the group, which I do say on farm because honestly, with poor RNG, it might take literally 8 weeks to kit everyone with a 535 weapon in an 8-person raid group. With the loot table out of the way, let's talk about the rules of raiding, because there are additional rules in place on what you can do for raid gear. You can't just endlessly farm E12S and gear out everyone. Unfortunately, that's why I said 8 weeks might be what a group with horrible RNG needs to go to. So the first and foremost rule to keep in mind is that you can only roll on any and all loot, don't worry about 1 piece, but any and all loot from your clear once per week. So you can also have all of that loot go into your inventory from that 1 clear once per week. That's not a problem. No limits in that way, but that limitation, as I was implying, is that you can only roll for loots from that fight, that particular fight, like E9S or E10S, once a week. You can get loot from E9S, and you can get loot from E10S, but you cannot clear E9S like 2 or 3 times and get loot multiple times. You only get it once. So just to be super clear with an example, let's see that you are in a group that cleared E9S and that you got 3 coffers for accessories. There is nothing prohibiting you from rolling on all 3 coffers from that chest, or even winning them all. But any further clears of E9S, you will not be able to roll again on any piece of loot, even if you obtained nothing. That's actually very important. The second rule is absolutely critical when raiding outside of a set static, especially if you're in Party Finder. This will be one of the most important things to communicate clearly with everyone, is that the number of total chests at the end of the fight that the entire group, not just you, but the entire group as a whole gets, depends on how many people in that current raid party in that group have already cleared that fight for that week. So when I made the loot expectations above, I made like that loot table of what you can get under a very important assumption that you have had absolutely everyone in that raid party not previously clear that particular savage fight that week. So that makes the assumption that everyone in that party has not cleared E9S or E10S or whatever. To quantify the limitations, if you have no one in your party that cleared the fight that week, you get 2 chests. That's what that loot table was based upon, 2 full chests. If you have 1 to 4 people in that party that have cleared, then you only get 1 chest for the entire group. But if you have 5 or more players that cleared, then that entire group gets absolutely no chest. Meaning that, yes, you yourself as an individual cannot roll more than once a week on loot, but if you go into another party, you will make it so that that entire group will lose loot that week. So this point I do want to actually stress here, this is why I'm even bringing it up in the video, is like, if you are doing this outside of a static, this will literally be one of the most important points to determine if that party finder wants you, or if you potentially are going to cost people some loot. Although there is a warning message, so people should be aware, but I just want to like arm you with the knowledge that like this is definitely a thing, and it's a very important thing. Now, the third and final rule is that you can only enter the floors in order once per week. And so this means for this tier we have E9 Savage to E12 Savage. That means that in order to get to E12 Savage, you can't just skip ahead. I mean, you can, we'll get to that in a moment, but in order to get all of the loot and clear all of the fights, you need to do E9S, then E10S, then E11S, and then E12S. Say that 4 times fast, it's kind of like a tongue twister. But you need to do that in order from 9, 10, 11, 12 in order to get all of the loot. As I was implying before, it is possible to skip previous floors if someone in the party already cleared that floor, or they gotta skip somehow that way. But if you skip a previous floor, then you forfeit any and all loot from that particular floor for the week. Like, that is gone for the week. Like, if you skip, how to say it? My group in particular, I'm going to bring up myself as an example, my group in particular has been skipping E9S happily because, to be quite blunt, it has nothing that we really want, even for alts, and we would rather funnel our limited raid time into something more enjoyable, like E12S, which is one of the most fun fights in game. But before I fangirl, I'm going to actually start heading to the intro. But the main point that I want to make here is that you can skip, but you will be forfeiting all the loot. Like, when my group skips, E9S, we will not be able to get, and no one in that group will be able to get anything from E9S for the rest of the week. That is gonzo. So that brings us to our outro. So genuinely speaking, like, what do you guys think of the rated gearing system? Do you love it, or honestly, what improvements do you maybe want to see for it? Because I do think that even though we're in a really good spot, that there could always be improvements. I mean, you never know until you hear like this one idea and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. So let me know in your comments. But if you're asking me personally what I feel and think, I do actually like the flexibility of our current loot system. I like the bad luck prevention with the books. I think it's it's a system that makes you feel as good as possible without just pouring loot onto you. And with the coffer system with an excellent raid leader, you can focus and aim gear at those who need it and rarely worry about waste. Minus E12S, mind you, with that one non-coffer weapon. But anyhow, that's all for this video. Take care everyone, and please stay safe out there.